can all have a. Also, I would like to let you all know that we are recording this meeting. We have got messages from nurses that they have different shifts. So we would like to share with them the recording of this session. And hence, we will be recording this session.
That's good.
Okay, welcome, everybody. We'll start soon.
How many applicants we have at the moment?
Just trying to see. I'm just trying to sort my screen. Why can't I see my slides? Yeah, I can see my slides. Jaren, how many participants do we have now?
31.
Great. I think probably start the introduction and then meanwhile people can join in. Jaren, please keep an eye on the waiting room and admit anybody who's joining.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So welcome everybody to this evening session today. We are going to discuss all about Australian nursing registration and migration pathways. My name is Jason and I'm the director at EdulogiX, and I have with me my able colleague and friend Dipendra from Mantra Education. Welcome,
Hi,
Dipendra.
thank you so much.
Okay, so Dipendra is a registered migration agent and he's specifically here to discuss everything about migration pathways for nurses and how we can help you to achieve your dream to become a registered nurse. Okay, so before we begin, can you please type in the message box from where are you joining us today? Are you in UK, Ireland, or are you someone who's joining from Australia? I know people are very interested in knowing what's happening in the nursing sphere. So just for us to understand from where are you joining us, please type in your location in the comment section so that we have a better understanding. Okay, I can see some comments here from UK. Mostly from UK, someone from India. Welcome. Great. We thought we'll have some participants from Ireland. Maybe they're joining still. Great. I think mostly from UK. That's good to know. London, Nigeria. That's interesting. Hello, Zoe from Nigeria. Okay, that's great to know. Please type in so that we have a better understanding. Okay, so quick things before we start the session. Don't forget to mute your mic, and we will give you opportunities. I know that you all have lots of questions about the new process and everything, but we will have a designated time at the end of the session where we will definitely allow you to ask your questions and unmute your mic, or drop your questions in the comment section. But I would request you all that please keep a pen and paper with you. Have any thoughts that's coming, just write it down, and then you can always put them in the comment section. We'll try to answer as much questions as we can, but please know this is a general session, and I'm sure that you will have lots of specific questions related to your specific situation, which our experts or myself or Dipendra might not be able to answer today, because we might need to have a longer discussion with you. If that is the case, we will definitely pass on to you our details, and you can always get in touch with us later. Okay. Now, we will, as I said, we'll be having a dedicated 10-minute session at the end, so don't worry about it. Okay. This session is being recorded and we might put it on our social media platforms as well. Okay. We have a lot to cover today. In this webinar, we'll be going through the new Streamlined Assessment pathway. That is the new pathway for UK nurses, Ireland nurses, and nurses from British Columbia, Ontario, Spain, and US as well. Okay. Then we'll also discuss about the eligibility criteria. Ooh, hot topic. Everybody wants to know who is eligible, who is not eligible. Lots of debates on internet, I'm sure. I will try my best to answer all the questions about eligibility criteria. Okay. But saying that, I may not have all the answers, but we are in regular touch with APRA and trying to find everything. But we will definitely let you know whatever we know. Okay. Now we'll also discuss about the new English language standard that has been implemented on March 18th. So how it's going to be beneficial for you. Also, we'll be discussing the steps and costs for nursing registration, the whole process, how much it's going to cost you. And then my able friend Dipendra from Mantra Education, he'll be discussing about the permanent residency options, employer sponsorships, jobs, etc. that you can look for. Okay. And at the end, we'll also look at some of the next steps and the contact information. Okay. So quick thing about us, I'm sure some of you already know us and some of you have sent us messages saying that you have been following our channel. We really appreciate that. But quick thing, we are based in Sydney, Australia. And my institution helps overseas nurses to get their license in Australia and New Zealand. That's kind of, I would say, 70% of the work that we do is for nurses to get their license in Australia and New Zealand. But we also help nurses for their Canadian nursing registration. And of course, we also do a bit of US nursing registration. You know, the US is always very complicated. Even if they get registration, the kind of PR pathway is very, very slow. So our focus is mainly on Australia and New Zealand. Okay. We also provide NCLEX and OSCE courses. I'm sure you all are familiar with both the exams, and APRA had put in a bomb for UK nurses last year when they closed the TT-MR pathway, the New Zealand pathway, and then asked nurses, okay, now you have to write the NCLEX and OSCE exam. And that was a big, big change from APRA as well. So we do also coaching programs for NCLEX and OSCE programs as well. Okay. As I mentioned, many of you already know us from our YouTube channel. We have, I think I don't remember how many videos now we have, but we have been trying always to put all the latest information for our nurses. I'll request Jerin, if you're listening, if you can put our YouTube channel link if for someone who hasn't watched it yet. But we have crossed over 1 million views on our YouTube, and with a very small team or who works for our social media, I think that's kind of a big achievement. We always have, get lots of ideas from nurses, make a video on this, make a video on that. And we, that's how we kind of figure out what do you guys want to know. Okay. Now I'll hand over the mic to Dipendra to quickly introduce Mantra Education and his role, and then I'll come back. Thank you, Dipendra.
Thank you so much, Jason. Mantra Education Migration, I think we've been working in this industry since 2018. So it's been almost 7-8 years. So we've been helping all the clients from onshore and offshore to help migrate to Australia on a permanent visas. So we specializes in general skill migration pathways, which is point-based system. And I'm working as a migration agent, a registered migration agent, and my migration number, registration number is 2217931. If you'd like to search and look for any registered migration agents, it's publicly available data on the Google. You can type my name and you can see the details. And we, as I said, we especially specialize in journalist migration. And apart from this, we do visa and education as well. So all kind of visas, so skilled employer, sponsor visas, partner visas, and all kind of visas. So if you need any assistance regarding your visa and migration, you can simply get in touch with Mantra Education Migration or Jason. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Dipendra. You'll hear from Dipendra in this session. So, quick thing, why this webinar is important, or, I'll just like to, kind of rotate the discussion about, why people want to come to Australia. You won't believe me that we have been contacted by UK nurses who have just arrived in UK and they are working as pre-registered nurses, probably even in their first month. And the first question that they ask is, how can we come to Australia? How can we come to Australia? Okay. And I understand the kind of, desire for everybody who wants to come to Australia because the weather is so good. I mean, just today I took my son for an amazing football match, and I can't thank God for bringing me to this amazing country, isn't it? Because you can probably go out all 12 months of the year and enjoy the lovely weather. Important to say also, the weather comes complementary with a very good salary. Most of our fresh graduate nurses are paid $80,000 per year. I know that's much higher from, as compared to what nurses who are working in UK and Ireland are earning. Apart from that, we hear a lot from our UK nurses saying that the PR pathways are much simpler, and you don't have to have the requirement of staying there for 5 years and then applying for your ILR and then PR. Too many formalities. Australia is pretty good with their general skill migration process, and then of course Dipendra will talk about it more. Okay, so. And I'm sure you all have lots of friends moving here, people motivating each other. Let's go to Australia, settle there. And I know that specifically from southern parts of India, they love here in Brisbane because they can grow everything under the tree, and they love doing the farming and everything. So yes, altogether, the life in Australia is very wholesome. You will enjoy the time if you have a family here specifically. Okay. Now let's talk about the streamlined assessment pathway, for which you have come here. So introduced this streamlined assessment pathway about this pathway in April 2025, just now on 1st of April, and had published more details about it in January. So this pathway is basically for those nurses who are there are two pathways, I'll talk about it, but majorly for those internationally qualified nurses who work in countries such as UK, Ireland, US, Canada. In Canada, specifically two provinces, BC, that is British Columbia and Ontario, Singapore and Spain. Okay. Honestly, I don't meet many nurses from Spain, but I'm sure they must be there as well. The key benefit for the nurses is that you don't have to write the NCLEX and OSCE exam. You save lots and lots of money and time. You don't have to go through the stress of writing these exams, and you get direct registration. Okay. It's going to be a faster registration process. From the initial documents that APRA has published, we have come to know that it's going to be taking 6 to 8 months. But honestly, if you look at, if I tell you about my experience, APRA is pretty efficient. I'm sure that the process time will definitely get reduced from 6 months to shorter duration, because they're pretty efficient in their system of processing the documents and the initial assessment. Okay, it's of course very 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 less expensive as compared to the previous process. So before, if you have to undergo the TTMR process, you were almost spending double the amount that you're spending now. So that's fantastic. And then they have introduced very structured, very clear assessment pathways for nurses. Okay. Let's talk about the pathway 1. I'm sure that most of you will be in pathway 2, but it's good to know about pathway 1 as well. Okay. So pathway 1 is for someone who have done a degree in these 6 countries. So if you had done a degree in one of the 6 approved countries, then you will follow pathway 1. I'm sure there are many nurses, because we have in contact with some GNM nurses who have went to UK and have done a degree program in UK. For you, definitely this pathway is more relevant. So if you have done a degree in UK or Ireland or the other jurisdictions, then what you need to check is basically, if you have done a degree, then the next question that you need to ask is that, do I hold a valid nursing license? And I'm sure 99.9% people will hold a valid nursing license in these provinces. And then if you have got your license, and have you practiced at least 1,800 hours, which is approximately 1 year as per the Australian hours of work, since 1st January 2017. Okay, so you must have experience after 1st January 2017 of at least 1 year to be eligible for pathway 1. Okay, if you are not in this process, you haven't done any studies, don't worry about it. You probably will meet the eligibility criteria in pathway 2. Okay, but yes, if you are someone who has studied in these countries, then yes, pathway 1 will be applicable for you. Okay, very quick processing. All you need to provide them is your evidence for your qualification, evidence for your employment, evidence for your you meeting the English language standard and the other criminal history checks, etc., and you will be smoothly going through the processing. Okay. Now, pathway 2, very relevant to most of the audience here today. Okay. So pathway 2 is for nurses who have not done their degree in these countries, but they have done degrees in other countries, let's say India, Nepal, Philippines, or some countries in Africa. But now they are working in these countries. Then if you're working in these countries, you may be eligible to go under the pathway 2. Now, why I say you may be eligible, because everybody is not eligible. Okay. The first criteria that you have to think of is that whether my degree that I have done in nursing, my nursing degree led to registration since 1st January 2017. Okay, so that's a big one. Nobody expected this. We, including myself, everybody thought that this new pathway will open arms for all the nurses. And if you ask my opinion, I don't know why they have done this, because you are losing on a lot of good experienced nurses. So first question you have to ask yourself is, my degree after 1st January 2017, I've got my license after January 2017, then you've hit the first eligibility criteria. Okay. If you do not meet this eligibility criteria, then pathway 2 is not for you. Even if you apply, you might have to write the NCLEX and OSCE exam. Okay. The second question that you have to ask yourself is that, have you successfully completed an licensing examination to get license in one of these countries? Okay, so for example, if you have done your CBT and your OSCE to become a registered nurse in UK and Ireland, you tick the box. Or if you have done NCLEX RN for becoming a registered nurse in US or Canada, then you tick the box. For Singapore as well, there's a licensure examination called SLE. If you have done that exam and then you became a registered nurse in Singapore, then you tick the box. Okay. Now, the next requirement is you should have a valid nursing license, which means that your NMC nursing license should be valid. I would say most 99% nurses have a valid license, but even if your license got expired, you can still apply, but you will see this clause here. Do you hold the registration anytime after 1st January 2017? Because remember, your experience need to be after 1st January. So you still need to at least show a 1-year period of nursing registration. And let's say if you do not have it now, then also you can apply, but there's additional criteria that you have to meet. Okay. Now, the last question that you have to ask is that whether you have worked for at least 1 year, that is 1,800 hours of work experience in these countries specifically. Okay. If you meet these criteria, then you are under pathway 2. Okay, again, same documents, similar documents is what is required: your education qualification, nursing license validation, employment history, etc. Okay. So yeah, simplified here. As I said, quick recap. BSc or post-BSc since 1st Jan 2017, work experience of 1,800 hours, past CBT and OSCE, valid nursing license with NMC or any of the other, comparable countries. And of course, you need to have your English proficiency. We'll talk more about English proficiency, but I would like to, just let you all know that I know that many GNM nurses had a desire to come to Australia and, do their APRA registration. But now, APRA hasn't mentioned clearly whether GNM nurses from UK will be eligible. But if you look at the track record of APRA from the last 7 to 8 years, GNM nurses have never been eligible to get direct license. So I'm not expecting them to, change something. If they can, that's fantastic. I'm sure it's good for everybody, for our nurses who are very experienced, but they have GNM qualifications, as well as for us as, professionals, because we can help more and more nurses. But we have asked APRA about this question. We haven't had a reply. But for now, to be safe, I would say BSc or post-BSc will be a valid qualification for you to consider. Okay. Now let's talk about your English language requirement. You will need to, I'm sure when you went to UK and your Ireland, you all had English language examination, then only you were able to start your practice there. So what you require now, as per the new English language standard, is that if you're taking IELTS academic, then 7 each in listening, reading, and speaking, and 6.5 in writing. And I can tell you, I can't thank APRA enough for this major change, because getting 7 in writing was not easy, and that was the biggest hindrance for many competent nurses to come to Australia. Okay, if you're taking OET, then B in listening, reading, and speaking, and C+ in writing is what you require. And if you're taking PTE, then 66 each in overall listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Also, you need 56. That's also, a small change, because earlier they had increased a little bit. They just did a bit minor adjustment. But I think most of you either had done your IELTS academic or OET when you went to UK. You can, if you have valid scores, fantastic. If you do not have valid scores, you can also use your previous expired scores, but there are certain conditions that you need to meet. Okay, first of all, if you had used your clubbed scores to go to UK, then the score should not be apart more than 12 months. I'm sure that must not be 12 months for you. It must be a closer time, so that's fantastic. And very important to note, if you're using expired scores, then you have to prove to APRA that I started working in a healthcare setting in one of these 6 countries within 12 months of passing my IELTS or OET. Okay, so take an example. Let's say you passed your OET in December 2019. So you'll have to prove to APRA that you started working as a pre-registered nurse or a registered nurse in the UK by by November or by December, the date, whatever date is before you complete that 1-year period. Okay. If you were not able to get into an employment, then you'll have to repeat your English language test examination. Okay, so very important to note here, specifically those who have used clubbing scores, you must calculate your time from your first exam. Okay, so if let's say you wrote the first exam in October and the second exam in December, and then you use the October and December clubbed scores, then the period will be from October till next year, October. Okay, not the December. So from first examination will be your period that will be counted. Okay. So I hope this is clear to you. And as of now, the cost that we are looking at that you're going to pay APRA is around £200 for your initial assessment application. You need to do an international criminal history check that's approximately £80 for each of the country that you have been living, in the last 10 years. And then if it's all good, your all documentation is complete, the final license fee that you're looking at is $245. Please note the fee can change anytime. Okay, this is as per the APRA website as of now. This is because everybody goes through the same process and pays the same fee. But if there's a change, we will definitely let you know. But as of now, this is the fee that you're looking at. Okay. So yeah, feel free to take a screenshot or have a good understanding about the fee that you're looking at. Okay. So now the next few discussion will be about the general skill migration. If you have any questions about the registration process, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. And then we will get back to you as soon as we finish the session, and we'll have a dedicated time there. Okay, all over to you, Dipendra. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think if anyone has missed my introduction previously, my name is Dipendra Bhattrai. I'm working as the Registered Migration Agent in Australia. And today we mainly focus about general skill migration pathway and employee sponsor visa, because we receive lots and lots of inquiries about employee sponsor visa, because mostly overseas registered nurses, they lack information about general skill migration pathway and what are the benefits of general skill migration pathway over employee sponsor visa. So I'll especially initially talk about general skill migration pathway. So introduction, general skill migration pathway is designed for overseas from Australian government to attract skilled workers from overseas or onshore to fill the labor shortage in Australia. Especially at this moment, there are lots of health professionals which Australia required. That's why they're inviting lots and lots of health professionals from overseas, especially registered nurses, pharmacists, and all like medical diagnostic radiographers and all other health professionals to fill out the shortage in Australia. So the general skill migration visa allows individuals with specific qualifications, skills, and work experience to apply for permanent residency in Australia. So minimum eligibility, so you need to meet the minimum eligibility requirements, which is you must have qualification related to your nominated occupation, and you must have positive skill assessment. This is the most important thing for general skill migration pathway. And you must have your occupation listed on the skilled occupation list in Australia, and you must have minimum competent English, which is 6 in IELTS or equivalent score, such as 50 each in PT. Okay, so general skill migration pathway, there are 3 visa subclasses, which is subclass 189, 190, and 491. Whereas 190 and 189 is a permanent pathway, direct permanent pathway, and 491 is a provisional visa, which will allow you to stay in Australia for 5 years. You can work full time, and then after 3 years, if you meet the minimum requirements, then you are eligible to apply for subclass 191, which is a permanent visa after 3 years. And this is a point-based system. So 189 is more normally invited by the federal government Australia. So you require at least 65 points to be eligible for all general migration pathways, whereas subclass 190 and 491 from state. So if you meet the state requirements plus Department of Home Affairs requirements, and the state, if they on the invitation down, if your occupation is listed on the invitation down, you will be invited according to the state requirements. Normally, state prefer higher points health occupations like the profession wise, and then English. Some states they prefer proficiency, English proficiency, which is superior English. They invite clients initially, and then who have proficient English or competent English, they invite later. And so for all general skill migration pathway, you need to lodge expression of interest, and there are some states which require you to lodge registration of interest from overseas, such as Victoria. So if you once you lodge your expression of interest, then depending on the invitation rounds and state requirements, if you meet the eligibility criteria and if your occupation is on the invitation list, you will be invited. Then you are ready to lodge your nomination application, and then you can lodge your visa application once the nomination approved. So we will discuss about, I think this is the most important thing. So we'll discuss about the general skill migration allocation for this financial year 2024-2025. And if I think today all the overseas registered nurses, they are in here for the invitation. So we'll talk especially about the registered nurses occupation. If you are overseas registered nurses, you are eligible to lodge your expression of interest in these states, such as ACT, Australian Capital Territory, New South Wales, Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland, and Victoria. Northern Territory is closed for this financial year, and the Tasmania is not inviting. The pathway for overseas registered nurses is closed for this financial year. You are eligible for these states, and the allocation, if you can see the numbers, the New South Wales, they got the allocation for 190 subclass for this financial year, 3,000, and the remaining number is 1,857. Still almost 65-70% still quotas there to be invited. And we recently, the good news is recently we got invitation from Western Australia and Victoria for overseas registered nurses. The registered nurses from UK, India, and Nepal especially. And then such as Queensland, they got 190 and 400 quota equally 600, and then they already have invited most of the clients, and they got the remaining numbers 232 for 190, whereas for 491 is 268. And Victoria is one of the states, they prefer health professionals, especially registered nurses. I think it was an invitation round last week as well. We received 4 invitations from overseas nurses, which is a very good sign. And Victoria has less quota because they already invited most of the health professionals in the past. But it's saying they prefer health professionals. So you still have 2 months remaining for this financial year, and you have a very good prospect of getting an invitation. And they've got 260 numbers remaining for subclass 190 and 465 for 491. Whereas South Australia, Western Australia, ACT, you can see the numbers. The biggest numbers still holding states are NSW and Western Australia. You can see almost 70% for 190 for NSW and Western Australia remaining still. And for 491, almost 50% quotas remaining. So if you have anything above 65%, you've got a 65 number for expression of interest, you've got a very good prospect of getting invitation within these 2 months. So this is the main questions we receive almost from overseas registered nurses, because they always look for employer sponsor. I think the only thing they are thinking about, as soon as they arrive in Australia, they are eligible to work and their employment is fixed from overseas. That's the only good point about employer sponsor visa. So I've pointed out pros and cons of employer sponsor visa. So normally overseas registered nurses, they are getting invitation from the employer for subclass 482, which is skills in demand. For this visa, which you normally get 2 to 4 years visa grant. So you can work in Australia for up to 2 to 4 years maximum, and you can renew your visa if your visa expires in between. So the pros, I'll especially talk about the pros first. It's a work opportunity. As I said before, most of the health professionals from overseas, especially registered nurses, they think as soon as they get in Australia, they get the salary almost more than 80,000 per year, and they think that's a secure life. But this normally 482 visa pathway leading to permanent residency is a challenging one. I've seen lots of clients who've worked in a 482 visa, and after 2 years, when they're eligible for 186 permanent visa, their employer, they doesn't want to sponsor them. So you'll be stuck. You have to find another employer, or you have to go through a general skill migration pathway after 2 years, which is a very, very common thing in health professionals especially. And this one is the flexibility. If you think about the employers, so if you wanted to change the employee in between, if you think this employee is not treating me good, or this work environment is not good for you, you have to find the next employer, and they have to nominate you, and you get the visa application afterwards. So which could be challenging. And their family, you can include family, which is a very good thing for employer sponsor visa. So if you are married, you've got a spouse or you've got a kids, you can include your kids and family, especially spouse and your kids, onto your 482 visa as well. And this is it's not a point-based system. So if you have your qualification from overseas, and normally registered nurses, they don't require skill assessment for 482. And if you meet the employment criteria, which is 1 year full-time, post-qualification or pre-qualification, then you are ready to go. The first thing, you must find an employer to sponsor you. That's the biggest challenge. And if you wanted to talk about cons, as I said before, employer dependency, which means if the employer sponsor you on 482 visa, you have to work with the same employer, unless the next employer, if you find the next employer, they sponsor you and they nominate you for the same visa subclass. You cannot work for someone else. So if you got the visa subclass 482, skills in demand, you stick with the same employer unless you get the new nomination in the visa subclass. And it's a temporary nature. So as I said before, it's a 2 to 4 years visa, which has the pathway for 106 visa after if you work with the same employer or a different employer for at least 2 years after working in a 482 visa. But depends on the employer if they're willing to sponsor you for 106 or permanent visa in the future. And the cost, if you compare the cost of the general skill migration pathway, which is 4,770 roughly, and for employer sponsor visa for skills in demand visa is 3,100 I think $30 Australian dollars, but it's equally same amount for your partner as well. Whereas for general skill migration pathway, it's half of the amount of 4,770. So altogether it will be 7,600 something dollars for general skill migration pathway if you have a spouse. But if you have a kids and a spouse, it will be higher for employer sponsor visa. So the state restrictions, and most of the states, they have a schooling fees depending on the states where you get the employer nomination visa. So you might not find the right, education for your children's, or the states, the fees for it might be higher. So where is the employer sponsor general migration pathway? If you get the permanent visa, you can enroll your kids as a domestic student, so that you don't have to pay the higher fees for your kids. And most of the public schools, they don't charge you anything for your education for your kids and yourself as well.
Right. Thank you, Dipendra, for giving an overview about GSM and employer sponsorship part. I would like to add few things here. So one thing I think probably I missed telling you is that although you do not you can use your expired scores for your IELTS or OET for your after registration, but please note that you will need to have valid scores for your IELTS, OET, or PTE examination for your migration process. But the good thing is that for your migration purposes, Australia accepts the validity for 3 years. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, and also important, I think, I can tell you about my experience with employer sponsorship. Honestly speaking, when it was COVID, it was pretty easy to get employer sponsorships. And you must have heard employers, giving big remunerations, bonuses to go in regional areas. And we also worked with a number of recruiters at that time and help them to get, help the nurses to get employment. But since last 1 year, we have seen it slowing down terribly. Okay. People are getting employer sponsorship, but they are very, very less, and they are in remote locations. Okay. So if you ask me, I would probably spend a little bit extra money and then get into general skill migration, and then I have the flexibility to work anywhere that I like. I want to get my kids admitted to a particular school or work in a particular area. I'm in control of my life. I don't have to worry about I have to manage my things with as according to your employer. And I understand how from where you all are coming from, because all of you probably have gone to UK by spending very little amount of money, because in UK the NHS sponsors everything, your OSCE preparation, your in the initial stay. I've heard great things about NHS in how they support nurses, flight tickets, everything is. Even I've heard that people they refund their IELTS fee as well, which is fantastic. But if you look at it, if it's so good, but why are nurses leaving UK within the first year? There's a reason why, because people can't stay there for such a long time, and that is probably also the reason why they are giving you all these incentives to come to UK and work, because it's difficult to get the nurses to stay there for a long time. Okay, most of the nurses after 1 year they migrate to other locations. APRA doesn't do any of these things. NMB or APRA, they don't have any incentive programs for nurses in terms of, helping you to get sponsored or anything, because they know that, there's a demand and supply game. We will always get nurses from across the world, the best of the talent, because we have all the positives with us. So I would say if you look at it for your future long term, the money that you're spending, probably you can make that money in the first 2 months of your employment in Australia. So it's always wise to go through the GSM and not wait through the employer sponsorship. We get easily around 10 resumes every day from UK nurses looking for employers, and it's very, very challenging for people to get employer sponsorship now. Okay, so on the slide you will see, we've just given you kind of an estimate of the cost that you need to look for your general skill migration. It's an approximate cost. Please go to the EMI Affairs, Home Affairs website. There's a calculator tool, and the cost will vary depending upon the type of visa that you're getting, the subclass, and also the number of people in your family, your kids, spouse. But just to give you a rough estimate, we have put it there. But depends on, you would like to add anything here from your end, or you think this is sufficient for them to know?
I think it's pretty easy for general migration if you wanted to calculate the cost. So for subclass 189 is 4,765, and for subclass 190 and 4,770. So if you have a spouse, you just divide by 2. If you have a kids, just divide by 2 as your spouse visa application fee. So for roughly, if you say 4,770 for main applicant, secondary will be half. And then if you have a kids less who are under 18, so you divide your spouse application fee by 2, so which will be half of the application fee for your kids.
Right. Just to make it easy for you, we put it in pounds. The currency that Dipendra is mentioning is Australian dollars. Okay.
Yes.
So we will give you this website link after our webinar today. We'll send you a resource email. You'll find the link there, put your details and see what is the kind of estimate that you're looking at. Okay. So yeah, that's basically about your GSM. So quick thing now. You must be wondering why you should take professional help. Can I do it all by myself? Answer is yes. If you're very smart, you can do it by yourself, certainly. But if you don't want to take the headache of the end-to-end communication, the management with APRA, all the emails flowing around here and there, where they are referring you to policy, this and that, and of course, in terms of your migration, so many things, which subclass to choose, which is better for me and my family, which area, what's the cost? All those questions can be easily handled by experts like Dipendra and Deepak from Mantra, or us as a team, because we have been doing this from a very, very long time. And trust me, you probably can do 2 or 3 extra shifts and cover the cost of all this, and you don't have to bother about or worry about. You can focus on your family and your kids and leave all this documentation and going through all these emails to us. Okay, so I would say it is a costly mistake to make, isn't it? Your life, your family's life, your future depends upon this big decision. So if you make a mistake, you'll be always regretting why did I not take a professional advice at that time, and I messed up everything. So I think it's always better to take the safer route. At least I am very risk averse. If you ask my team, very risk averse. So I always prefer going with the experts, listening to them, and going through their advice. Okay, so before we go to the next slide, what I'll request you all to do is, if Jaren, can you put the Google review link here in the chat, so that people can give us some reviews about this webinar, what we must do next time when we come back for this webinar. Tell us any suggestions that you have, or if you found this session useful. Don't go right now. We have few things coming here, but I'm just inviting you to give us some Google review while we navigate the next few slides. Okay. So Jaren, if you can put the Google review link, that will be fantastic. Okay. Now
I have a question, please.
Yeah, yes, Deepa, we will come to the question. There's one more slide I have to complete, and then we'll come to your question.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the last part of this session is about the service charges. So what we charge is very nominal and competitive for you. All our payments are split up in different stages. So you achieve that stage, we achieve that stage for you, you pay us, and then we move to the next stage. Okay. So the first process is regarding your APRA registration assistance. We charge $600. Oh, sorry, £600 for that process. And next, once your APRA registration is sorted, we hand you over to our capable team from Mantra, Dipendra, and Deepak. And I can't praise them enough. We have had fantastic results with them, excellent communication, and they will help you with your ANMAC assistance. At that stage, you have to pay £500. Then, when you complete your ANMAC skill assessment, you move to the next stage, which is your expression of interest lodgement. At that stage, you pay £500. And at the time of your final visa lodgement, you pay again a £500. I would like to tell you that last week, or I think 2 weeks ago, we have hired a Pakistani nurse. Deepak, Dipendra, their team launched the EOI, and within first 24 hours, she got the invite from
Yes.
Victoria. So, see, it's about, you pay for the services that you get fantastic services, low headache, and that's about you. So approximately £2,100 is what you're looking at. But if you are thinking to take a decision quickly, then we are very happy to give you £100 off for your first fee. That is your APRA